I've always been able to draw well. So it's drawing and creating art is so natural to me that I don't see anything special about it. Just because I've always been able to do it. So it's just something that I do. And like I was saying about my family, always looking for the joke to say, there were very few circumstances where I got any praise from my family for drawing. They too, since I'd always done it, they never felt the need to say, that's a really good drawing. I never heard from them that, you should do this as a career. It was something I always just did. And it's worked out for me. It's worked out because it's enabled me to do so many different styles and work in so many different mediums because I don't have any, I have no mental blocks as far as, can I do this? So my earliest inspirations for wanting to thumb my nose at everything came from Bugs Bunny cartoons. I've often said that Bugs Bunny was my first Noam Chomsky because it demonstrated really an outlaw mentality. Bugs was always not doing what he was supposed to do, and he was really funny. And then I extended that line to things like, John Coltrane. You listen to some jazz, and you're like, wait a minute, this is not following a traditional path. It's really interesting, this is dangerous. And then I started to look at, all of a sudden all my heroes then started to come to me. Jack Kerouac, and Vonnegut even to an extent, who had no villains inside of his novels because he didn't believe there were such a thing as villains. There were different degrees of stupidity and different circumstances that came out of people doing the wrong thing. And that resonated with me. And it made me start to really distrust everything that I had been taught about right and wrong. The Bugs Bunny inspiration was when I saw art reflecting that kind of thinking, the outlaw mentality that I was talking about. That's when my talent, for lack of a better word, came to the fore for me. Previous to that, a couple years earlier than that, I do remember thinking that I did not want to spend my entire life feeling like my telepathy was being read by a God who was extremely judgmental. And I remember going to the store with my grandfather, and I remember the feeling of the sun on my face, and I was 7. And I remember thinking, I'm going to test the theory of God. I'm going to test how all this is working. If God is listening to me, I should be able to think of something that would offend him so bad that he's going to strike me down now. He will kill me. At least I won't have to wait for it. I don't want to spend my life waiting for somebody to sneak up behind me and choke me to death, essentially. So I thought of the most outrageous, dirty thing I could think of, and nothing happened. And then I got into the habit of extending it past just filthy, dirty sex thoughts that might upset God to just other things like, oh, well, just maybe there isn't a God. That seemed like enough to enrage the Christian God, and nothing ever happened. I haven't been struck down yet. So it made me suspicious of everything that I was being taught. It was just an extension of just like, wait a minute, it's Santa Claus. I remember wondering while all this was going on, maybe a little bit before this was going on, so wait a minute, is Santa Claus Jesus as an old man? Because the mythologies were sort of, they didn't make sense with each other, but they were being taught to me with the same passion of, this is the truth. I want you to respond to this. The naughty and nice. The naughty and nice thing is in both Christianity and, with the Santa Claus and Jesus. And so just getting all that worked out in my head started to make me realize something was up. You know, something was not being truthfully told to me. I had a twin sister. So in the early 70s, you know, it was just like I was a feminist. I wanted to grow up to be Angela Davis, you know, because my sister could do everything better than I could. So the idea of just like, oh, she's just a stupid girl, I knew from just personal experience that that wasn't true. And yet it was reflected in places in the culture that were being upheld by grown-ups who should know better. So then it makes you say, you know what? Grown-ups should know better. I know that that is nonsense. And yet they're pretending, they either believe it or they're pretending that it's true. And I don't like either justification. So for years, my goodness, for 5 years maybe, something like that, I was his illustrator too. So he would send me his column on either late Saturday or usually late afternoon on Sunday. And it was turned in for Monday morning. And I would illustrate something for it. Because it was always much more interesting than the freaking, like, the Getty images or just the AP photography that they could get, you know. Because you don't want to have something where he's, like, slamming the Obama administration for, you know, the drone program or something. How interesting is it to find, you know, a Getty image of a drone? You know. You're right, and there's so many of them. So it doesn't really serve, it doesn't really help turn his article into a piece of art, which is what he really, that's how he works. He's a philosopher much more than anything else. So to have something like an original piece of art accompany that is meaningful to him. And to me, I really, really like doing it for him. Yeah, so doing events with Chris is, it's always great. I mean, we have great affection for what each other does. And just personally, we really like each other. And we're on the same wavelength. And I never know how effective the event was after I do it. Just because there's so many different kinds of people in the audience, you know. Everybody's light comes on for a different reason, you know. So me saying something that I see somebody just like, oh yeah, and then you look, you know, 3 people down and there's somebody sitting there just like, it's like you just slapped them in the face, you know. So, you know, that goes back and forth all through these sorts of events, you know. Chris has got so many stories about his experience, you know, with war, that it's always really great to have him explain exactly what it feels like. You know, that's why I thought it would be an interesting event, you know, when this was being put together and I was communicating with Chris about how we should structure the talk. And I basically said, listen, you've got experience, direct experience with what it feels like to be in war. I have none. Most people have none. So let me speak about war as an abstraction, and you can speak about it as an authentic experience. And maybe those two approaches will resonate with somebody somehow during the course of the talk and further the conversation.